Hello. Hello there, Viv. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thank you. Nice to see you
Very
again.
good, yeah. Same with you. All right, all right. So, thank you so much for joining us. It means a lot, actually. This is, I believe it's our first episode, actually. So, I'm going to try and
Right.
get this out to as many people as I can. Yeah,
Excellent.
sweet. Yeah.
Let's
So,
do this then.
yeah. Right. So, I'm going to ask you a couple of questions, as in a couple, I mean, probably about enough, right? Not necessarily too personal, but obviously relate to what we're doing, right? Okay. So,
So, what are you doing? Why are you doing the podcast? What are you doing it for?
So, what we're trying to do, David, is we're trying to inspire as many people as we can by letting them know where you start from in life, you can end up with a massive amount of success. So,
yeah.
for me, David, I started from the rock bottom. I had an abusive biological mother, and she would choose abusive boyfriends over me and my brother. And I did not want that to impact my future.
Yeah.
So personally, I got into politics as I moved into the house where I am now with amazing parents, uh, absolutely amazing. So I joined the Young Conservative Party, and by that I had opportunities to meet ex-prime ministers, have work experience in Westminster, and that was amazing. You know, more opportunities. I take every opportunity I can.
Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
Nice one.
Um,
So that's our aim, really.
yeah. Basically, to inspire people who have not come from a lot that you can go to success. For instance, your story. Yeah. All
Well,
right.
you'll be the judge of that once you've asked me some questions. Then, so
All
let's
right.
go.
Yeah. All right. Let's go. All right. So, start with David. Introduce yourself.
Okay. I normally introduce myself as a little fat guy from Birmingham who, for the first 30 years of his life, achieved nothing at all of any significance. That was because I was a coward and I was immature. I'm now 57 years of age and I'm no longer a coward. I'm just very immature. And what I started to do at the age of 30 was realize that I hadn't achieved anything, not because I wasn't good enough or clever enough. It was just because I was too scared to have a go in case I failed or my peers laughed at me.
Hmm.
So at the age of 30, I realized, come on, Dave, you're an adult now. Just have a fucking go. So I decided to accept the fact. And that is, I say that a lot, but few people realize its significance because we understand things. To accept them is more difficult. Um, so I accepted the fact that occasionally I'm going to fail, and I accepted the fact that occasionally people aren't going to like me, but I decided to find out what's true. And what's true is that you'll still fail occasionally when you go for it, but 9 times out of 10, when you give something everything you've got, you tend to achieve things. So when I left school, I actually I actually went to college to become a chef to prove a careers officer wrong at school because he said, with the qualifications you're going to get, you won't get into college.
Hmm.
And that was because I was so immature. I literally went, watch me. So I lied on my application form about my grades, got into college. Turned out to be a really cool thing because I became half decent chef. Um, I started my own little catering and event business in Birmingham, as you can probably tell from my dulcet tones.
Yeah.
And after 13 years, I sold that business and turned my hobby into my career. My hobby was traveling around the world, interviewing really successful people. And by successful, I mean millionaires, billionaires, world champions of sports, scientists, engineers, academics, entertainers, rock stars, authors, even one politician. And all they were telling me about how they set goals and achieve things, there was nothing difficult. Everything they said, I was thinking, well, I could do that. It's hard work, but I could do that.
Hmm.
And so I started, and yeah, I've never really looked back after that. So years down the line, I am now a researcher on the subject of goal setting and personal effectiveness, and I am a very, very proud professional speaker, one of the busiest in Europe, who has now presented live to over 1.2 million people all over the world, and over 250,000 online.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Okay. So, you were on about school. How exactly did you do in school? Like with like teachers or friends or effectively anything school related? How'd you do?
Right.
Oh, mate, honestly, school gave up on me really early, so I gave up on it. And I was never a bad lad. I wasn't naughty. I was just incredibly immature. And I was one of those, what teachers sometimes call grey students. Sort of, they're aware of you, but they don't even know your name. And I was just in the corner looking out the window at pigeons and making fart noises and stupid, immature jokes. And I kind of plodded through school. And because school gave up on me, I literally was the whatever kid. Um, if there was a fight break out, I'd be standing next to it and get into trouble for it. That was the kind of kid I was,
Yeah, yeah.
You know. Actually, one kid actually threw a chair out the window once, got out the window and ran away, and somehow I got the blame for that. So that's the kind of kid I was, and I left with very average grades at best. And
Mm,
it wasn't because I wasn't clever enough. It was because I didn't know how to learn.
mm.
Any teacher that engaged me, I loved that subject, and I'd go for it. But any teacher that gave up on me, sadly, I gave up on it.
Honestly, that sounds a lot like myself because I like science and I thrive in science, but I hate maths. And I've got like probably two at the moment. So I'm absolutely flunking at maths. Teacher is okay. It's not, I just generally do not like it, so I'm basically flunking at it. Um, yeah.
Well, my generation got away with that. Your generation can't,
Mm,
because now employers are more switched on than they were when I left school. So employers will now look at your grades across all subjects, and if they see you're awesome at science, for example, Kian,
yeah.
but you're flunking in what subject?
Maths.
Maths.
Yeah,
They'll
very
go,
maths.
so if I give you something you like to do, you're going to fly. But what
Mm,
if I've got to give you something to do you don't like? Am I going to get that result from you? And so they're going to ask awkward questions. So now what they're looking for is people who it might be there rather than there. And then they'll ask you to justify and you can say, well, I hated that subject, but I knew I couldn't give up. So I really worked at it. And that impresses them.
yeah. All right. All right. So, when you left school, right, left college and everything, you were on about your kind of like, kind of bakery kind of business type thing. It was like cake shop, right? How exactly did you start that? Like,
Okay, well, my mother was really good at celebration cakes. So
mm,
even though back in the day it wasn't a big hobby like it is these days, I mean, there's TV programs about cakes now.
mm,
My mum was actually world renowned for her cakes. She used to make massive wedding cakes, like 7-tier wedding cakes with waterfalls and fountains. And she made a grand piano cake for Lionel Richie out in Dubai. And people, she was phenomenal. And she had this little corner shop, and at the back of the shop there was a space. And my dad turned around to me and said, well, rather than it go to waste, do you want to start a business in it? And I went, yeah. And I got a loan of about, I think it was £5,000, which to me then was like the world. I was terrified. um, and I bought some tables, an oven, and a sink and a fridge, and started a catering business. So I was doing weddings, office buffets, and things like that, and it just grew, and grew.
yeah. All right. So, when you decided to start this business, right,
Hmm.
and your mum was a good kind of baker, right? Did you kind of pick up on them skills as well?
She tried really hard to get me to do it, but I was too easily distracted. You need to really concentrate to do that kind of stuff, like science, or if you make a model. My friends were really good at models. I didn't have the patience. I was more of a go and play rugby or go camping and climbing kind of guy. Um, so I was more of I was I had way too much energy,
Yeah.
way too much energy to sit that still. So no, I could do it, but nowhere near her standard.
Mm, yeah, yeah. So like how long did it last?
13 years. I sold my catering business in the year 2000.
How much for?
Um, do you know, I can't actually remember. I remember I sold it to my head chef for about a quarter of what it was worth.
Oh, okay.
Hmm,
because I wanted it to continue, and he was desperate to start his own business. So I did him a deal, and yeah, I think he did all right out of it.
So,
yeah.
David, what pushed you to be a motivational speaker? Did you look up to anyone to actually start?
Well, okay. So there's two questions there, Kyle.
Sorry.
So no problem. So what pushed me to become a motivational? I actually, and people don't believe me when I say this, but it is true. I never set out to become a professional speaker. I actually, with my research, only interviewed these two people to learn how I could become more effective. I never had any intention of becoming a speaker. It was only when we started setting some really big goals and making a difference in other people's lives when they achieved that I realized actually if I learn how to deliver this, I could help a lot of people. So initially, I learned how to present out of a place of service rather than I want to be a speaker. I'll be honest with you, the thought of giving a presentation, even in a school, let alone to a big company conference, I'd have been physically sick in the toilet with nerves beforehand.
Mm.
Between you and I, once actually had an accident. I mean, I was terrified, terrified. And
Yes.
so to answer the second question, once I realized, okay, I could help people, I need to do this, then I did exactly what you've just suggested, mate. What I did was I tracked down people who were A, very successful professional speakers, but B, who presented in a way that I thought, wow, that's cool. So I knew that I wanted to kind of present in that way. And I tracked them down. Some of them mentored me, thankfully. And I learned how to present my content. And then over the years, especially working with the two toughest audiences in the world for a speaker, which are chief executive groups and teenagers in high schools. And they're the two toughest groups to speak and work with. And I became addicted to working with those two groups because they're both really real. If you do a good job, students and chief execs, they tell you. And if you do a bad job, they chew you up and spit you out. There's no pretend to be liking you with teenagers or chief execs. So in order to do a good job and create an impact, you've got to be big. You've got to go for it. And I love that.
Going back to the question where you were like, you tend to thrive in things, right, which you like, right? Is that
Yeah.
one of the reasons why you probably got so good at speaking and like interviewing?
Well, thank you for saying that. I would say I didn't get proficient at professional speaking just because I liked it. I do. I love it. But actually, I became proficient out of a desire to help more people. So what I learned very quickly is that in any audience, people aren't the same. Even in your peer group of friends, guys, you've got people with different skills, personalities, backgrounds. You've got some quiet, some really extrovert, some middle of the road. And I learned very quickly that if all I do is go, it switches off about 40% of the room. If all I do is stand here and talk like this, that switches off another 40% of the room. So what you've got to do is be big, be quiet, be sensible, be in your face, be in your grill, be gentle and soft. You've got to really mix it up in different parts of the delivery to hold a room of people. So that's how I got around that. It was initially, I knew I had to get good to engage more people because my purpose was to help, not necessarily to get a round of applause. Now, I still have an ego. I still like to be liked, but I don't need it anymore. I need impact. That's a service. People, you two doing this podcast, you saw me a long time ago and, my massive goal, I remember you, saying, oh, we're going to do this podcast. We want you on it. And I get teenagers a lot say that. And I just thought, yeah, nice, great. I'm not expecting you to do it. And here you are.
Yeah.
So you might say, oh, Dave, this is really good having you on the show. I'm sitting here going, this is awesome. Look what you two have done. And I feel great. The fact that you two are doing this. So I get like double whammy.
It was motivation from you, really. But yeah, teenagers say they're going to do something and, can't be bothered to actually do it. But me and Kian are actually here. And because
Yeah.
of you, thank you.
Well,
Yeah.
you doers. Got to respect that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. When you are like kind of like speaking to a large group of people, right? And you get that kind of like nervous kind of feeling. How exactly do you kind of combat that?
That's a cool question. I love answering this one. yes, I still get nervous because every single audience is different. And also, I don't know what kind of a night's sleep I've had or a day I'm having. Everybody has bad days. And, so every single day is different for me, even if I'm presenting the same stuff. So I learnt a lesson about how to handle nerves from the late, great Muhammad Ali, widely regarded as the greatest sportsman that's ever lived. And I saw an old footage of him being interviewed on the television by a British journalist. And the British journalist turned around to Muhammad Ali when he was at his absolute prime and said, "Muhammad Ali, do you ever get nervous before a fight?" Now, Muhammad Ali was known as Mr. Cocky, Mr. Arrogant, Mr. Super. And he said, "Oh, yes." He says, "I get nervous." And David Frost, the interviewer, went, "Hey, you, world champion, Mr. Muhammad Ali, you get nervous." And he went, "Yeah, I get butterflies in my stomach. So what I do is I get them flying in formation." Now, he'd never heard of sports psychology. It didn't even exist then. But what he was intelligent enough to know was that nerves and excitement are very similar feelings. Really similar in terms of what it does to us physically. So he just decided, well, let's be excited then. And he just chose to be excited rather than nervous. And I tried it. And I don't know if I did this with you guys, but I teach a technique called anchoring where you take control of yourself emotionally and mentally and physically. And I started practicing it. And boy, does it work. Really works.
Yeah. All right. And it was also like a similar thing with like Mike Tyson. He'd be absolutely terrified in the locker rooms, and then as he gets closer and closer, he realizes he's going to win. He gets more confident, and I think that's like a similar thing to what you're on about with Muhammad Ali. Is basically just taking that and knowing you will do well because of it.
Well, there's not an audience in the world who wants a speaker to be bad. If whether you're a teenager in a school or some delegate at a big corporate conference, you don't sit there, watching the speaker walk on stage going, "Oh, I hope they're really bad." You might look at them and think, "Oh God, really? You got stuck here for an hour with them?" But you want them to be good to hold your attention, otherwise it's a waste of your life being there. So if in your head as a presenter you can remember that an audience is desperate for you to be good, they are desperate for you to be good. So if you are, that's a bonus.
Yeah, yeah, and it's kind of that like fuel of like people are like expecting you to be a good one. It kind of like pushes you to be better, doesn't it? It's like the nerves, things that fuel you. That's one thing that I find really interesting is because literally yesterday, right, I was terrified of today, right, and I was thinking just because I'm this terrified, right, I know it's going to be better than I think, so I'm gonna end up leaving the interview feeling better than I did the day before.
Yeah.
And
Excellent.
yeah, it's kind of that kind of thing again. It's like you realize that it's gonna go well because you worried.
Yeah.
It,
And it means you care as well.
yeah,
Good point. Great point. Yeah, if you didn't if you weren't a little bit apprehensive to keep you on your toes, frankly, I'd be worried.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And of course, like here we are now, absolutely fine.
And
Yeah,
as in most things, I often say to people now, I like quoting other people who have succeeded massively. I don't normally have many Dave quotes when I'm speaking, but a Dave quote is, "It's okay to be afraid. It is not okay for you to be so scared that you don't have a go."
yeah, yeah.
Because
It's like
what you two guys are doing this day is you are behaving like a 3%er. So psychology suggests that 2.5 to 3% of the population are the doers, the succeeders, the people who take action. How many people your age are dreaming about doing a podcast? They dream and they give it all the talk, and they'll get a nice suit, they'll buy a nice little microphone for their computer, and they'll give it a name, give it a logo, but they actually won't do any freaking podcasts. You guys are doing it.
yeah,
You're doing it. Can't argue with it. Feel the fear. Do it anyway.
yeah. And for example, I'm recording this on my freaking computer, like freaking what's the word, camera. That's the one. And a freaking built-in mic, and I'm still doing it. So you don't necessarily need all that stuff, do you? I mean,
No.
it works, doesn't it?
Who was one of the most successful people you've actually spoke to, and what outcome did you get from that?
Wow. And I'm glad you said successful, because people frequently say, who's the most famous person? And I have
Yeah.
interviewed lots of people who are famous. That's not an issue,
Yeah.
but that wasn't my intent. My intent is to interview successful. And sometimes there are some really successful people who aren't famous, and they're the cool interviews, just the
Yeah.
same as there are some really famous people who've got no talent whatsoever. So the most successful person in terms of being a human being, a rounded individual, would probably be a woman by the name of Vicky. And Vicky, she was told at 14 that she'd never leave hospital after a minor operation that turned very serious very quickly. And she was told she'd die before the age of 21.
Mm.
So she was literally told at 14, skipped into hospital one day. That next morning was told, you're never going to walk in again. You're staying in this bed. You're dying before you're 21. And in her short life, she got 2 degrees, lived away from home, taught herself to drive, taught herself to swim, got a Paralympic silver medal, gold medal, 2 world records, an MBE from the Queen at Buckingham Palace, an honorary doctorate from the university, started her own business.
Wow.
And every time I think of the excuses I'm telling myself to not have a go at stuff, I just remember that she had no excuses. She had no excuses. She just went, I decide, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I decide, not you. I decide. And she died many years later, but still tragically way too young. And so any time I catch myself feeling sorry for myself, I just go, Dave, you got no excuses. Come on.
Mm.
I'm going
And
to remember that story, to be honest with you, the next time I'm doubting myself, because she's achieved, you know, a lot more than someone else could. And, you know, the sad story, I mean, she done amazing.
Yep.
yeah,
Example to us all.
yeah. And it's that kind of mentality that basically pushes people to win. It's like even the people who have literally don't have a proper reason to do it, but they do it anyway purely because they can. And it's that mentality that literally builds winners at that point.
Yeah.
It's like there was someone else I know, I can't name them exactly, but it was a similar kind of situation. Um, but they had this kind of like a cancer thing, and they won a Nobel Prize for something. It was something science related. But yeah, she did that in a matter of probably about 5 6 years of the
Wow.
diagnosis. And yeah, it's a really inspirational thing because she didn't necessarily have a reason to do it. She could have gone, I'm just going to sit here and live my life, or actually do something with it. And she chose to do something with it, and obviously that's benefited her, and she obviously lived to actually a decent age. But I mean, it's still classed as young. It was like 40 something, but it was a long and well lived life.
Excellent.
Yeah.
So, David, what's your favorite thing about speaking in front of many people? Is it the knowing that you're impacting them and they're going to try and push to success?
Um, that is partly the reason, although I come across as very arrogant when I'm speaking. And yet actually, I don't think I'd be as arrogant as to say that I'm pushing them to succeed. I think there's a difference between inspiring and motivating, and I might be able to inspire you to want to do something, but you're the ones who have to motivate yourselves to do something. So when I'm in front of a large audience, the primary thing that gets me sort of up and at it is I know statistically that there's between 1 and hopefully 10% of that audience who are going to go out of the room and really push themselves and do things that they wouldn't have otherwise. And to have played a small part in that, wow, I'll die happy whenever I die.
Yeah,
That's legacy, that is.
yeah, it's
It is.
yeah, it's the type of thing that most people kind of dream of doing. It's like there's a massive difference between a dream and a kind of goal, pretty much. It's like the dream
Mm,
is you want to do something, right? but you're probably not going to do it. And a goal is you're literally working your way to that thing. Like for
100%.
instance, Mike literally started at like what 15, right? And he was told continuously, right, by Cuss, right, that he was going to make it, and look where he made it. And it was that motivation and effectively mainly the discipline he took from that motivation that got him there.
It doesn't matter what we say we're going to do or what we dream about doing. It only matters what we do.
Exactly.
I promise you, you are not the only young adults to tell me I'm going to start a podcast. You're the only two that have.
Yeah.
So, walks the talk. I like that.
Absolutely. I mean, as soon as you obviously you gave a speech to our school, which was amazing. As soon as me and Kian walked out of those doors, we looked at each other and said, "We're actually going to do this." It's enough talking about it and waffling on about it. We're actually going to put it into an action plan.
Cool. We'll make sure this isn't the only one then.
Of course not.
It will not be long.
We've got quite a few people lined up, haven't we, Kian?
Yeah, I think it's about
James Ainsworth, is he the next
Yeah,
one?
I'm pretty sure you
right.
interviewed him a while ago. Yeah. So should be the next one. I think we've got about 5 other confirmed ones and about 3 other kind of in betweens that we don't know for sure.
Brilliant.
I think the biggest name that might be confirmed is Michael Rosen.
Wow.
Yeah. And I'm basically just trying to find a list of people who have done a similar thing, basically not come from necessarily a lot to where they are today, right? And I basically just send out loads and loads of emails, and of course, I've had responses back.
Yeah, so we're both actively working towards people. I mean, I've got the local MP, Rachel McLean, Jordan North, who does some radio thing, if you know him. William Hanson, again, who works with Jordan North. So we are working together to find, the most amount of people, but that match the criteria of starting from rock bottom to success. Because it's no good, interviewing someone who's been privileged all their lives because they don't actually know what it means to come from the bottom to the top.
I'll have to introduce you to Darren then, my mate Darren Harris. Darren Harris, I think he was 14 when he became blind. And if you go to, I'm trying to remember the name of it now. It's where the England football team train near Burton-on-Trent, where it's basically the head of the FA, where all the big posh football pitches and that are. They've got a wall of fame in reception of the most capped England footballers across all disciplines, men's, women's, blind, and whatever. And my mate Darren Harris is one of only 3 people at the very top of the food chain there. He's the most capped male footballer in British football history. He beats Wayne Rooney, he beats all of them. David Beckham knocks him into a cocked hat. and he's inspiring. I'll introduce you to him.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So when you are trying to necessarily talk to people and like hunt these people down to kind of interview, how exactly do you get in contact? Is it like sending out a ton of emails or trying to find someone who has close contact with them, or what do you do?
Great question. In the early days, I actually wrote probably close on, I sometimes say 400, which is a made up number, but I probably sent out 200 emails and letters in the early days when I first started, desperate for a response. And it was when I got my first one, which was with a former British world judo champion called Neil Adams from Coventry. He was so interested in the interview because no one had ever asked him questions like that before. He's only used to journalists asking him, what you're doing next and when you're retiring and, rubbish like that. Because I was asking him questions like you are about me, sort of makes you think stuff. He said, can I introduce you to some other people who I think would be cool? I went, yeah, because top achievers know top achievers. So to them, it's a case of just get the phone out and introduce you. And after that, I don't think I've asked for many. I've just been introduced. It's been wonderful.
So how exactly, right, did you train to be like as you are today, right? Was it like, do you go to like just different smaller conferences and you just go to loads of them and you kind of like training by repetition? Or is it that it's just small groups?
Well, when you said train to be as you are today, I thought it was on about a little fat guy from Birmingham. I was going to say, no, I just eat. I just eat.
Yeah.
Um,
I should probably specify
so,
that.
so how did I train? Okay. I joined an organization called the Professional Speaking Association, and I
Ah,
went along to one of their meetings and I sat in the room surrounded by people who do this for a living, and I was just in awe of them. I
Mm.
was just going, wow, look at all these shiny suited people. And I was just this little fat guy who used to be a chef. And I just thought, I want to be part of this world. I need to learn here. I need to watch and learn, because normally I was always the gobby one. And in that environment, I just shut up and listen and watch, and I learn. And it's been the greatest learning environment for the last 23 years. I'm
Yeah.
still a member now. I'm a fellow of the institution and a award-winning speaker in the PSA. And um, some of the senior members, they're the people who I saw on stage at conferences and events, and I asked them to mentor me. There was a guy out in Dubai who mentored me. There's two old boys in the UK who mentored me, and these guys earn 6, 7 figures from speaking a year.
Mm.
Seriously big boys. And sometimes it's not just what you learn that you must do. Sometimes it's as important to learn what not to do. So they'll tell you to not do that because it'll fail. Don't do that. You'll crash and
Mm.
burn, and it saves you a lot of trouble. So
Yeah.
just as important to speak to people at the highest level for whatever it is you want to do, because they'll not only tell you what to do, but they'll more importantly tell you what not to do. Saves you
I,
making mistakes.
I want to do a similar thing to you, David, to be honest, but on the more political aspect. So I'd want to talk in front of many people as I can to make an impact on their lives. So it decreases the chances of someone having the same beginning as me. I just want them to realize that no matter where you start from, you can still succeed in life. You don't have to be born into a fortunate household to be successful.
Well, if you become a politician and learn the art of communication and presenting yourself properly with an intent to serve, which sadly over the last 20 years a lot of politicians have forgotten that one, um,
Mm.
um, you will do very well, because this is the age of communication. More than ever, people will listen to someone with the courage and the certainty of speech. Most employers look for communication skills as the number one skill now, even above academic grades.
I mean, that's amazing, really, because not long ago I had my speaking test and I was so nervous for it, not because of how many people there were, but the people in the room. I knew they were going to, be laughing and joking about it. But I walked up there, I gave it my all, and I got a distinction, which is the highest pass. Thank you. I mean, I wasn't expecting it, to be honest. I mean, everyone says, if you want to go into politics, you're a good speaker, do it. I done it. I got the highest pass. It was difficult, but I done it.
Okay, I'm going to make an assumption there. And my assumption is the reason you got a distinction wasn't just because you knew your subject, it's because you gave yourself permission to show how passionate you are about it.
Absolutely.
Because there'll have been 100 people doing that piece of oracy spoken piece,
Yeah.
and they would have allowed their nerves to get in the way of them presenting.
Yeah.
I remember when we did that as kids for our English exam, the audible piece, and the kid who came top of the year group was the most well, he was an unusual little character, let's put it that way. But he was obsessed with CB radios.
Mm.
And the teacher, when she came out, went, "That was the best I have ever heard in my life.
Mm.
Why aren't you like that all the time in class?" And people listen to people who have certainty, confidence, and conviction. And I mean, you've seen me present, right? And
Yeah.
you probably heard all your colleagues and peers sat around going, "Oh my God, who's this person?" as I walked on. And what I do is I go big right from the outset, and
Mm.
people go, "Oh," and then they think they can laugh at me, but then they realize that I don't give in. I don't stop. I keep going and going. I'm relentless. And as soon as people realize that I'm serious, then they relax because they can trust me. I'm not pretending to be confident.
Mm.
You know,
Yeah.
and that's the difference. I might be afraid, but by God, they're having the best of me. And anyone who can learn to present like that will do very well for themselves.
I mean, and the thing is as well, the topic I've done it on was rather political, and I thought no one's going to be interested in this. But everyone was so impressed. You see all their mouths open, they were clapping, they loved it.
And most people respect someone who gives it their all, especially here in the UK. We're very, very quick to knock people down if they think they're something special.
Yeah.
But actually, what we trust people who are the underdogs, who go, enough now, you're having the best of me, bang. And and
Yeah.
you see it on things like X Factor and Britain's Got Talent. You see the most unassuming, unlikely people smash it out of the arena because in that moment they decide to step up and, despite their fear,
Yeah.
deliver with certainty, confidence, and conviction.
So it's basically that kind of like it's basically not giving a damn about really what people think. And it's basically just going at it knowing that you are doing what you're doing and they're doing what they're doing, and you shouldn't really think about them. And
What people
it's
think is none of our business.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
None of our business.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also that kind of like charisma that is kind of like inspires people. It's like when you're like very like energetic and very like I said, in your face. It's very like kind of like personal, really. It doesn't feel like you're just talking to like everyone in the room. It's like you're talking to one individual person, and I think that kind of pushes you the most because it makes you think, that you are special and you should probably, like you should take on the advice and put it to action. Yeah. So
Absolutely.
And the amazing thing is with public speaking, what the thing I noticed is even if they are not interested, at least I'm speaking in front of them and I'm making them think, because I really wasn't expecting them to give a damn. But they're all walking out and patting me on the back saying you've done amazing. Even my English teacher, I don't get on very well with her. She's a bit quite unpopular. But even she said I've done really well, which when she says or gives me a compliment, which is very rare, I do take it to heart.
Typically, teachers don't give unwarranted praise, so you must have earned it.
and like especially ones that don't necessarily like you, then of course that means a lot more, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. And back to the kind of like the thing Kyle said about the being a politician and like kind of like speaking being one of the most powerful things, right? For example, I'm not going to say his name because I'm probably going to get banned off YouTube or something, right? But that Austrian guy with the funny mustache, him, right? Yeah, right. In my opinion, the reason he was so popular, right, is because he was a great orator, and it was his speaking that inspired people. Even though it's completely wrong, it's inspired people, and it's like it's half confusing because even if your point necessarily isn't like doesn't make much in the way of sense, if you say it in like a charismatic way, right, it has a form of influence over people. And yeah, that's what
And in the world of learning and development and personal development, we call that the kitchen knife analogy.
Right.
So any skill, be it science, driving a car, or having a kitchen knife in your hand, you choose how you use it. Now, somebody like Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you're familiar with him,
Yeah.
his life story is jaw-dropping, and he used his words to inspire himself and millions of other people. The guy is an inspiration. And the person you mentioned earlier, our good old friend Mr. H from Austria and Germany, what he did was he used his verbal skills to cause harm and division. Now, it's a choice. Two people from the same country in the world, one uses it for good, one uses it for bad. And it's the same podcasts. Podcasts can be used for bad. You know, everyone's banging on about this, you know, Mr. Tate person, and I don't know him personally, so I'm not going to judge him. But you know, a lot of people say that people like him are using social media to cause division and resentment and harm. Well, yeah. So don't listen to it then. Listen to something that fosters good and positive intent. You know,
Exactly.
like the Kyle and Kian show. Um,
Yeah.
Like,
So you were also on about, right, a while ago, of you have spoken to like I think it was like 1.2 million people in your career,
Yep.
right? Who do you think, right, out of all the people you've kind of like inspired the most and you think has had like you think has
had the most success.
yeah, yeah, had the most
Gosh,
success and benefited the most?
wow. That's a hard one. Okay, well, I'll give you two examples. In the business world, there's a guy who was built like me, who worked in financial services, who set a massive goal to run a marathon, but his colleagues laughed at him and said, well, you only like hot countries, so you better go somewhere warm. And he went, yeah, okay. So he signed up for something called the Marathon des Sables. Now, I don't know if you've heard of that. It's called the Killer Race.
Mm.
It's across the desert.
Oh,
It's 7 days, running 6 marathons in 7 days,
Mm.
and 1,000 people enter every year. Less than 40 people ever finish it, and people die every year. And
Mm.
that was his first marathon. And he didn't know what he'd signed up for till he got there. When he got there, he didn't have the equipment. People were lending him stuff, and he sent me a photograph of him standing on the top of this massive dune with the desert behind him, and he looked bedraggled, looked like he'd been dragged through the sand with his face in the dirt. And he sent me an email afterwards saying, I finished it, I survived. I never would have done anything like this without this massive goal principle that you put inside of me. So we had a business guy who had one optician's store when he first started, and he took on board my Go Rhino, set massive goals ethos. 12 years later, he sweeps the board at the Sunday Times Best Business Award and has got 800 employees, shops all over the UK.
wow.
As we've had British, European sporting champions. We had multiple Amazon #1 best-selling authors, students who have become millionaires in business while still in education.
Mm.
In terms of the memory skills and the goal setting together, whoa! Other than my family, it's the thing I'm most proud of, lads. We have had thousands and thousands and thousands of students go 1 to 4 grades in 4 months having fun. We
Mm.
had, and my favourite story, very, very quickly, because I know you're itching to ask more questions. My favourite 2 stories. One, a young lady from Telford who was average at best, her words, not mine, who in 4 weeks went up 4 grades in her English exam.
Mm.
4
Jesus.
grades in 4 weeks. Change of attitude or what? But my favourite story of all time has to be a young lady from Worcestershire who was really nervous and she wanted to go into politics, and I thought she'd get chewed up and spat out. Boy, did she prove me wrong. She got mentored by Barack Obama.
Oh,
Jesus.
Why? Because she asked.
Mm.
She
wow.
asked. Now, you asked me, here's your first episode. If you just keep asking people, you will have a portfolio 3 years from now. People will look at you two and go, whoa, how did you do that? You know, honestly, and that's what's happened to me. I started as a hobby interviewing people, and now, apparently, I'm the only living person on the planet to have done as much research into goal setting. How did that happen to a little fat bloke from Birmingham? You know, but it's consistency.
Mm.
You know, we've talked a lot about the attitude, the motivation, the drive, but actually it's being consistent.
Yeah.
If you give up 6 interviews in because it's hard work, well, so what? Here today, gone tomorrow. If you
Mm.
guys do one of these a week or one a fortnight forever, you two, as long as there's a real as long as there's a really gold thread through these interviews, that there's one thing we're looking for the answer for that's going to help man and womankind, you know. So I would urge from now on, everybody you ask, find the answer to one question that's going to change the world, like I did. Everyone's taught to set realistic goals. Top achievers don't do that. They set massive goals. So that's what I teach. That's what separates me from the herd.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went on a bit there.
No, it's fine, honestly, really interesting.
That'll teach you for asking me a good question.
All right, yeah. Also, back to that CEO who did the run, right?
Yeah.
That reminded me of this guy. Are you familiar with a man called David Goggins?
David?
Goggins.
Yes, I know the name.
Yeah. He basically went from like, it's like 300 pound, I think it was like I think it was 23, spraying for cockroaches, right? And within like a few years, he built this kind of calloused mind, pretty much, of discipline, and he ran an Ironman in a matter of a few months. He did it in 19 hours, right? And I think he dropped 100 pounds in less than a few months because he tried to join the Navy and they wouldn't let him because he was too big. And he dropped all that. He was the only person in history, right, to ever do 3, I think it was Hell Weeks, Navy Hell Weeks in a year.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. And honestly, he's a massive inspiration. He's literally like everywhere.
You're interviewing him.
We could try. I haven't done it yet. No.
Get onto it, you bloodhound.
Yeah.
Seriously, track him down, hunt him, stalk him, go through his bins and make crank phone calls. Hang outside his house late at night and tell him Kyle told you to do it. Seriously, go get him.
Yeah, I will actually. Yeah. I've sent out a few emails to people like that. I think I'm honestly going to send a few more to some of the same people again. I'm literally everything he's on. And hopefully I can get him on.
And everyone you interview, once the camera and the recorder's been stopped, say to them, do you know anyone else we should be interviewing? Because again, they know these people.
I mean, you've gave us your amazing suggestion, so thank you for that, David.
Pleasure.
Thank you very much. Okay, so
next one.
Yeah, so it's about your online courses, right?
Oh yeah.
You on your website, the main one I'm interested about, right, is the one about finding your why, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you mean by finding your why?
Okay, right. Buckle up for this one. There's a lot of fluff talked around the word purpose and finding your why. You know, people, as soon as you mention those words, people think, oh, I've got to sit in a circle and chant on around a candle wearing sandals. And it really isn't like that. It's actually a very deep, tough subject if it's done right. There are 2 words associated to the purpose or the why. And one is core values and the other one is insecurities. I'll go there in a second. Now, a goal is something that you go after. Something tangible, materialistic, measurable, like, you know, A stars or grade 9s in exams or a first in your degree, or it's a measurement. It's I want X sports car or X amount in the bank. A why or a purpose is the reason why you're doing it. So my goal when I used to raise money for charity and break charity fundraising records, setting my massive goals, is I set out to raise £50,000 in one event for cancer research. That was the goal. But my why that made me, and forgive me if this sounds a bit daft, but it made me indestructible. It gave me what I call the Superman kind of confidence to go after the goal. The reason why I must have achieved that goal is because 3 months earlier, my mum died of cancer, and I promised her on her deathbed, I'm going to do something significant for cancer research in her name. So when people laughed at me for daring to suggest I could raise 50 grand in one event, I literally just smiled at them, and in my head I went, over my dead body, am I going to fail?
I'm really sorry to hear that, David.
Yeah.
So the why is the reason why you must, and you use that to achieve the goal, the what. Now, the why, how can I find a why, Dave? Well, a why is something, and this might be a bit deep, so if you don't get it, just go, what do you mean by that, Dave? But the why is made up of your core values, things that drive you, and your insecurities, which are things that get in your way. So in your securities are your fears, your stresses, your anxieties and insecurities. And your core values are the things that make you who you are, the decent person. And for everyone, if all three of us were to write our lists of what our values are and what our insecurities are, we'd have very different lists. There's no right or wrong, but it's got to be true. So if I was to write my values, on my values, it would be happiness, fun, joy, laughter, my son, my wife, my friends, my family, music, nature, wildlife. And it would be all the things that just make me go, boom. Trust, integrity, honesty, loyalty. All of these things drive me. And then on the insecurities, it would be things like punctuality, detail, spreadsheets, technology, aggressive people, and all the things that get in my way. And here's how you can use your weaknesses as a strength. So before I carry on, are you with me so far?
Yeah.
So far, yeah, actually.
Okay, so you've got your values, you've got your insecurities, and instead of seeing your insecurities as a weakness, now we're going to use them as a strength. So our goals must only ever, especially if they're big goals, right? They must only ever satisfy your insecurities and meet your values. So you're only doing things where your values are going to be met and your insecurities ain't even going to show up. So I don't do things where punctuality is going to be a problem. I don't do things where I can't be trusted. I wouldn't do something where I'd have to lie or be disloyal to my wife or my son. I just wouldn't go there, because as soon as I go there, no matter how appealing some of the adventures in life can be for me, as soon as I go there, my life goes horribly wrong. Things only go bad in life when either your values are being compromised or your insecurities crop up. If you do things where your insecurities are met and your values are satisfied, life's easy.
I mean, my goal, really, David, is just to prove my biological mother wrong, that, of the idea of not me succeeding. And I just want to show to her, even though she didn't give me the best upbringing, look where I am now. Look what I'm doing. That is my main goal.
Well, Kyle, this is very arrogant of me to ask you to do this. Can I ask you to consider modifying it slightly?
Of course.
And it's your goal. You can do what you want. But if you do things that's got a negative context to it, there'll always be a negative context to it. So instead of doing it to prove somebody wrong, do it to find out how good you really are.
Yeah, thank you.
Because that will do the other thing for you, but that's not the reason you're doing it. Because if you're doing it for that reason, that's actually a negative context, and all your insecurities will crop up, and so don't go down that dark alley.
Okay, thank you.
Walk to the light.
Yeah, that's quite inspiration, actually.
We're going deep here, aren't we, lads? Eh?
Yeah.
Very deep.
Yeah. 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 All right. So, if you had any tips or tricks, right, to somebody, right, who wants to go into, any field, whether that be business, politics, or just genuine life, do you have any tips to give to someone on like how they can properly take action with their life?
Another great question, guys. Okay, there's a couple of things. Number one, don't do it to seek approval of anybody. Do it to earn trust and respect. a bit like I was saying to Kyle earlier, do it for a positive reason.
Mm.
Don't ever do anything to seek approval. You know, like your generation, all the selfie generation on social media, it's all for approval. And then as soon as one person don't like you or trolls you, your whole world crumbles because you're doing it for approval. And when you don't get it, life sucks. So instead, do it to earn trust and respect. Be relentless, be certain, confident, full of conviction. And if you do this, I guarantee the standard of your delivery of these podcasts will just go through the roof. Just go through the roof. And then you'll get trust and respect because you were relentless when everyone else would just give in. So, number one, don't do it to seek approval, do it to earn trust and respect. Number two, every single day, even if it's only for 5 minutes, 10 minutes tops, do something that's taking you closer to the goal. One thing. If it's send one email, make one phone call, go and wash somebody's car to earn a fiver towards a quality microphone or some decent light. I should have set up for this one. So do something 5 to 10 minutes every single day. That breeds consistency and reliability. Commit. Now, be very careful how much you commit to in the early days, especially whilst you're still in education and have got lots to do. But if you say you're going to do one a month or one a week or one a day, you better deliver, because the day you don't, people don't trust you anymore.
Yeah.
Because you're not doing what you said you were going to do. So you can always increase it. So maybe start with, I don't know, whatever you want to do, one every 2 months or one a month or one every 3 weeks. But if you say you're going to do that, commit to it. Tell the world this is what we're doing. And you're actually doing the right thing already, by the way, lads, which is getting a bank done up front before you go big. So that's what I do with my YouTube videos, my shorts that I put out on social media every day. I've got a whole bank of them done, so that if I can't get any done for a week, I don't let anyone down. So we've got.
Sorry. Continue, David. Sorry.
Sorry. The other thing I'd say is, in the words of the great Chris Akabusi, 4x400 meters relay athletics legend for Team GB, is don't look up to people, look into them. Whatever it is you want to do, be, have, or achieve in your life, personally or professionally, go and get a mentor who is amazing at that one thing. So for you two guys, this is relevant, be it at school with your maths in particular, Kian, right?
Yeah.
Own maths, Kian, right? So for your podcast, go and track down one of the biggest hitting podcasters in the world and ask them to mentor you. And if they say no, don't give up, go to the next one. If they say no, go to the next one. Don't give up, but get a top podcaster to give you an hour to tell you how they do it. And then do what they say.
Yeah.
So, David, how would you recommend us best to advertise this podcast to actually get it out there, well known, and for people to want more?
Okay, because your target is young adults for this podcast, would that be fair?
Yeah.
Okay. I would very professionally put on a shirt and tie and go and get an appointment with every head teacher of every high school, college, and university within a 25-mile radius of where you two live, and say, we're doing this podcast. We don't expect you to pay us for it, but can we ask you to help us get this in front of young adults by putting it on your website, on your server, introduce all your students and the student union to it? And if they say no, they're crazy, frankly. Or you could go to them and say, all it's going to cost you is the price of a new microphone or some lighting or a backdrop for my office, or, you get your kit by serving people.
Yeah.
And grow it that way. And as long as it's on a platform where the world can see it, as soon as you start getting these numbers for example, within a 20-mile radius of where do you live?
Redditch.
Redditch. Oh, what's it? Right. Okay. So within a 20-25 mile of Redditch, there's probably 10 high schools. Each one will have 1,000 students in. That's 10,000 hits you could get on your podcast. If that's on a platform, boom, you're in the top 10.
Wow.
Yeah, God, yeah.
Would you recommend us putting it on social medias like TikTok Shorts, YouTube Shorts, etc.?
Yeah. Yeah. So what you do is you put the big one on. So you could download this, put it up onto YouTube, and then if you've got good editing skills, edit little 55-second chunks that are snappy, punchy, and chuck them out all over TikTok. But always make sure you've got a link back to where the podcast is, whatever platform you've put that on, iTunes or whatever.
Yeah. I've got a few people, right, who I know who would be willing, if I was to send it to them, they can turn it into like probably about 10, 15 different interesting clips. And then they can send them back to me, or I could send it back to them, and they can distribute it to loads of different other accounts. So that basically means loads and loads of accounts just going at it.
The only other thing I'd say is you own it. So make sure that you tell them what the clips are. So I want it cut at this time and come out at that time. They say this at that time, this at that time. So don't leave it to someone else to come up with the clips for you. You do the hard work and you'll get the results.
Yeah.
I'll leave the editing to Kian. I'm not best at technology, Dave. I'll be honest.
Yeah. I'm the kind of main editor, really. Right? Yeah. So yeah, I'll probably spend the next few hours editing this. Right. Okay. So honestly, I think we're done, David.
Yeah. Thank you very much, David.
Yeah. Thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.
And of course, if you would like, we can advertise your courses at the end of the video. We've already got a pre-made thing set up if you would like that.
That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So yeah.
I'll send you a link to the page, and we'll go from there. Nice one. And
sweet.
And as and when you're ready for some more interviews, drop me a line. I'll introduce you to some cool people.
Yeah.
Of course. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, David. See ya. Have a good day, David.
Bye.
Bye.
So if you want access to David's amazing courses, go to his link in the description below.